Hey there, it's Angela, and I'm so glad you found your way here to architecting. Creative careers can be stressful, and it's hard to be vulnerable, but this is your landing pad for raw honesty. I'll help you get clarity, reconnect with your passion, and have the career of your dreams. If you're ready to make a difference, have an impact, and say bye-bye to burnout, stick with me, and let's get architecting. Welcome back to Architecting. I'm Angela Mazzi, and I am your guide through the overwhelm, stress, and burnout of being a high-performing creative professional. Today's topic is about what we put in the proverbial too hard basket. You know the one. It feels like you just don't have time. It's too complex. You're not sure how to take it down. You don't think you have the right skill set, so you say, I'll do it later. And later, well, that turns into months, even years, and the thing never happens. I talked about this in the last issue of my newsletter, which, by the way, if you have not signed up for, you can go to architectingpodcast.com, and right there on the front page, there is a button you can click. I usually send about once a week. It's just some more in-depth thinking on the topics of the podcast or other issues. You also get a heads up on special offers like my upcoming leadership challenge that starts in January. This is a really great one to get in on. It is just 15 minutes of audio listening. It is not live, so you can do it on your schedule once a day. You'll get some really great prompts on how to be a better leader in a way that feels very doable and that you can put into practice right away. So if that sounds good to you, you can see that also on the front page at architectingpodcast.com. Back to this idea of too hard. For me personally, this year it's been around a personal trainer. Last year at my annual physical, my doctor really honed in on the fact that I take Advil every day, and she kind of freaked out about it and started saying, this isn't good for you. This is going to destroy your kidneys. How long have you been doing this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, since I was like 20, because I have really bad back pain. And normally during the day, I can move around and not be too troubled by it. But at night, when I'm trying to sleep, I can't get comfortable. And we all know that a good night's sleep is really critical to our health and high-level functioning. So I would take 4 Advil before I went to bed every night. Well, apparently this was a huge, huge health no-no. Don't even know how I'm still alive at this point, according to my doctor. So she immediately sent me for x-rays, and to my surprise, I discovered that in my lower back, I had mild scoliosis, likely due to one leg being a little shorter than the other, and that there was some disc deterioration. So went through this whole exhaustive 2-month round of physical therapy, did get a little shoe lift to put in all of my shoes so that helps to keep my legs more even. But most of the work of healing this, and the physical medicine doctor emphasized this, that it can heal, is core strengthening. Now, do we want to guess how good of a job I've done at this core strengthening? You would think that I would have eagerly embraced this and done it every day. I have these exercises that the physical therapist selected for me. They have been put onto an app on my phone. The app on the phone counts down for you. It shows you video of someone doing the exercise, right? It couldn't have been easier. And yet, I don't do it. Why? Because it doesn't fit into my normal daily routine, so it feels hard to do. I thought about working with a personal trainer, especially since my favorite yoga studio did not make it through the pandemic. I'd been going to yoga 3 times a week. That was really helpful for strength and flexibility as well as stress management. Now I have to travel 20 minutes to get to yoga. So I did find one place that works on Saturday mornings only that's a little bit closer, and that gets me 1 day a week. But I've really cut back on the yoga too. So I thought, well, let me work with a personal trainer. Except I don't know how to find a personal trainer. When I go on Yelp, it's not the most helpful. I've tried asking for referrals, not really getting a whole lot of guidance. It feels like a lot of effort, right, to do the research to find out about who would be the right personal trainer for me. It's going to take time and effort on my part to figure that out. So, what do? I don't. What does that mean? That I still haven't started working with a personal trainer, and I'm no closer to being able to select a personal trainer to even talk to and learn more than I was back in January. And I'm sure you have had this experience too, in ways big and small. Everything from I need to buy a new tube of toothpaste, but there are 30 different brands and types of toothpaste, so I don't even know how to pick one, all the way to bigger life issues about up-leveling your career or quality of life that feel overwhelming. There is real psychology behind this idea of what we put in the too hard basket. See, our brain likes to take shortcuts, loves to form habits, things that just go on autopilot, loves routine, and really avoids having to do anything that's hard. So we have to almost give our brains a workout by challenging ourselves. The more we use our brain to overcome problems, the better we get at problem solving because our brain will form a neural network around that as well. Let's talk a little bit about this whole too hard basket and start with choice overload. We just have a plethora of choices about anything and everything. We can get overwhelmed really easy because we don't know how to evaluate those things. And so it's easier to make no choice than it is to have to put in the work. It's easy to do what we've done before, even if we wanted to try something different, just because it's easier than going through the effort of trying to decide what our next move should be. When we have too many choices, we are less satisfied with what we do choose, and we're more likely to second guess it and wonder what would have happened if we'd made a different choice. And that means we're less committed to seeing that choice through. And something becomes a little bit more difficult or challenging as we pursue that choice, we're much more likely to give up on it and think, yeah, maybe this wasn't really right for me. And we blame ourselves when something isn't easy, and we opt out when it isn't easy. It's why all of a sudden cleaning the kitchen seems like an urgent task instead of working on a proposal or studying for that ARE exam. Doing something that doesn't require a lot of mental effort, but that we know we need to do, feels easy and productive. So we can still think that we're making good use of our time. But the truth is, we're not putting our time where it counts in those high impact areas because they feel hard. So we have to recognize that we do have limited cognitive resources, and we have to do things to try to regulate the choice. We don't always have to have all the answers. If you think you have to know what you're looking for every time, you're going to have impossibly high standards and you're never going to make a decision. On the other hand, if you believe that it's okay to try something and see what you think, and it doesn't feel so high stakes, you're more likely to really give that choice a true chance at satisfying you, whether that is a new brand of peanut butter that you bought or a class you're taking. You're more likely to pursue it for longer, to try it different ways if you have less significance and heaviness that is attached to the choice. And that you know that you always have other choices, that nothing is ever wasted. So we don't need to regret a choice because we are learning something from having made that choice, even if it's just more clarity on our preferences, which is the next part of making decisions. The clearer our preferences are, the more easily we can determine whether a choice is right for us. We can exclude a lot more of the available choices because they don't meet our preferences, and we can much more easily evaluate a smaller range of options. Let's dive next into another aspect of what makes things feel too hard, and that is competency. When we are perfectionists, we believe that we have to be good at something and we're afraid of failing. We will not do something until we are quote unquote ready. Well, got news for you all. There really is no later. The time for action is now. No matter what's going on in your life right now, the time will not be better to take something on in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. There will always be something going on. There will always be a reason it doesn't feel like the right time or a good time. In my book, Time Builder, I have a whole chapter on procrastination because it is such a big issue in our lives. We postpone things when they feel hard in some way. The easy stuff we do, it's the hard stuff that we don't do. You need to decide if something is important enough to you to commit to. You need to look at where your knowledge is and where the gaps are. Need a strategy to fill those gaps. And then you just have to commit to it, even when it's hard, even when it feels like a lot of work, even when your demons come to haunt you in terms of all those voices in your head, making you question what you're doing or who you are to be taking this on. To illustrate this, I really want to talk about my daughter, who I couldn't be more proud of. She has ADHD, and the form of ADHD she has is a near total absence of something called executive function. What is executive function? That is our ability to prioritize tasks, to break tasks down into smaller chunks, to come up with a plan and strategy to get something done. It's actually a skill that emerges in toddlerhood, despite the name. Those who don't have it feel easily overwhelmed. Now, even if you don't have ADHD, when you're overwhelmed, you are less likely to break things down into doable chunks, to have a strategy and a plan, and you're more likely to act in a state of avoidance. So this really kicked in for her heavily in high school, where that avoidance and the resulting lack of self-esteem because she wasn't accomplishing things made her less likely to want to try. It's all about self-efficacy, believing you can. If I identify myself as a good student, I will do what it takes to maintain being a good student versus if I don't. So she didn't really believe in herself as a student. She also had the added bad luck of being a COVID senior, going to college, having to try to do remote learning, which was something she really didn't have the skill set for. Struggled through a very unsuccessful freshman year, was extremely depressed, took a year to recover from that before she decided to try pursuing a degree in food science. When she started the food science program, even though she was very interested in the topic, there was a lot of new rigor and new skills that she had to have in place, like remembering to bring her knife set to classes or understanding the rigor of the assignments to plan menus and put together ingredient protocols. So while she was in the class, she was doing well, but the prep work was a struggle for her. She also had a lot of classes that were math based or spreadsheet based that were very tedious. Organic chemistry was a slog. The first year was not the most successful, and she had to have a moment of truth at this point of saying, am I always going to stop when it gets too hard? Or am I going to make the commitment to work through my personal limitation, my anxiety, my self-esteem, my ADHD, find a way that works for me and do something because it matters to me to do it? And I am so proud of her that she's made that commitment. And that commitment has paid off over time. She got an A in that organic chemistry class. In both her baking class and her second level cooking class that she just finished this semester, she was the star pupil. She had one of the chefs that's been teaching her tell her she will go far. To see the complete change in her demeanor because she invested in doing the hard stuff. She found a way, even when she was up against the wall or struggling. She learned how to ask for help instead of staying stuck and giving into those perfectionist tendencies that she ought to be able to figure it out. She stopped procrastinating. I saw her work on a spreadsheet a few weeks ago that was very difficult for her. And she realized she could only do it in 10-minute bursts, but she committed to doing it and getting it done. And the feedback she got was that her spreadsheet was one of the best that the chef had ever seen. It was incredibly thoughtful and detail oriented. And it made just the biggest impression as well, because as you can imagine, the culinary world is its own little highly networked place. Her commitment, as well as her talent, are allowing her to stand apart. I tell this story because it's easy to give up when you fail. It's easy to stall out when you fail and procrastinate because you're not perfect. She learned that she needs to do it messy, that she needs to commit to the things that matter to her, and she needs to find a way to get it done that works for her. Leave you with a challenge that comes from the work of Dr. Daniel Amen, who wrote the book Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And he talks about working out our brain, challenging ourselves to do things that are hard, that we're not sure if we can do, creates a whole different level of critical thinking ability and enhances our creativity. Doing hard things, far from being something that we should avoid because it feels overwhelming or stressful, are actually the keys to setting us free from overwhelm, stress, and burnout, because burnout is tied to feeling that we have a purpose and that we matter. Overwhelm is just an anxiety response, and stress happens when we are in fear. The more we can face hard things, the more we can face hard things. By challenging ourselves, we not only have the pride of our accomplishments, but we've taught our brain how to do something. The more we use that skill, because the neural networks in our brains are very much a use it or lose it kind of connectivity. So the more we use something, the stronger that neural pathway gets in our brain and the greater our abilities become. I know you've heard me talk about flow state and getting into that place of ease, but it is a cultivated skill. And it happens when we do not avoid the things that feel hard, but instead are willing to take them on. Please share your stories on what you've overcome or someone you are really proud of in your life. I love hearing your comments. Make sure you like, rate, and review this podcast wherever you are listening, that you tell a friend, and make sure to check out my leadership challenge. It is not a class. It is not something you should put in the too hard basket. It is a really great way to condition your brain to think a little bit differently about how you go through your daily life and to really make some meaningful changes so you will stop putting things in the too hard basket that are really critical to the things you want for your career success and living your best life. Take care, everyone, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you want even more content, head on over to architectingpodcast.com and subscribe to my newsletter and get some great free downloads while you're there. Be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram at Architecting Podcast, Facebook and LinkedIn pages are Architecting, and the YouTube channel Architecting Podcast. Stay inspired.